been pushing a little bit for the comments about Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And the possibility of pulling back some of the measures.
Right.
Yet none of the scenarios that we've been looking at even suggest that cases are going to be anywhere close to where they would need to be.
Right.
To relax some of these measures by then.
Right.
Aren't we?
Modeling is modeling. It is not in any way predictions or a function of modeling is put together to predict what our responses should be. The fact of the matter is we put in along on Dr. Shahab's advice, a significant amount of initiatives last week until December the 17th, and we'll be looking for some success with those initiatives to not only curb the increased rate of infection that we've been experiencing over the course of the last few weeks now, like the rest of this nation and the rest of North America. And if we are able to, in some way, have some type of a reprieve of that rate of transmission increase, we would look to Dr. Shahab, who is doing some work now on, what those scenarios may look like and what recommendations he may come together, understanding that, this is part of the short-term goal, is to allow potentially people to see their loved ones for a short period of time with the appropriate safety personal protection equipment, to see maybe a loved one in a long-term care center once or twice. This is the goal. Pardon me?
Trying to do that, or is it to offer people a more realistic scenario? Because whether it's the fault of government or anything, none of the case numbers obviously are just increased exponentially. I think we're seeing that right now. So I guess as to our first question, why would we give people get people's hopes up when the high likelihood, given the case flow numbers, suggest that a hell of a lot's going to change?
Our target is that we would be able to hopefully do that. But in order for that to happen, people need to adhere to the measures that are in place. We need to see, and Dr. Shahab will speak more specifically to this as we get closer to December 17th, which is the time when we are either going to relax, renew, or intensify the restrictions that we had put in place last week. Dr. Shahab will be providing his advice to this government through the health minister, and ultimately we'll be moving concurrently on that advice to whatever that is. It may not be possible. But you ask, Murray, is it my place to provide hope and to provide opportunity and to provide some targets for the people of the province to work towards between now and December the 25th? I think it is. And we've seen other provinces that have moved for example, Quebec and other provinces that have said, between December 24th and 27th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there are going to be a little bit of a different standard so that families would be able to come together for those few days. We're hoping for the same here in Saskatchewan, but we have some grasp between us and when we would actually be able to look to Dr. Shahab for advice for that to happen. What do I think those are? Well, that's not a decision for me to make. That's work that Dr. Shahab is looking at now. We'll be looking at over the course of the next number of days, and I think we can all look to him for what his recommendations may be as we near that December 17th date. It may be status quo.
So you're really saying that with sustained high case numbers, that policy option of relaxing some of that restrictions is on the table, that doesn't make sense.
Well, it's most certainly the hope that we would be able to look at some type of relaxation between, and December 17th is yet another 10 days or 8 days from Christmas time. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to achieve this here in the province. We've seen other provinces that have put some guidelines around that. You have not seen that yet here in the province of Saskatchewan. That's because we're just not in a position to make those recommendations yet. Dr. Shahab has said he's not in a position to make those recommendations yet. So hopefully we'll be able to have that conversation as we get closer to December the 17th. But I would think it's everyone's goal that we would be able to be able to see some of our family over Christmas. Myself, my wife, we are already making plans for that not to happen in our family, unfortunately, and I know many other people across the province are likely having the same conversation with their immediate families.
Other provinces like that, but infectious disease experts have also planned that decision as being good politics for being irresponsible because in January, February, it's going to be very high case numbers, which is not what any province wants to see. So why would you even risk?
for the very reason that people could be able to gather at Christmas time. I think that's an important piece for any family, important opportunity for any family to be looking forward to. Listen, we've been through 9, 10 long months here in this province, across the nation and around the world, and we do need some opportunities for us to look forward to. Christmas may be one of those opportunities. We're hoping it is. It may not be. There is a chance that it may not be as either. There are other opportunities that we need to start looking forward to as well. Actual access, widespread access to a vaccine here in the province would be the ultimate opportunity that we'll be looking for and continuing to look for. But Christmas is one of those short-term holiday seasons that I think many people in this province would look forward to the opportunity to spending some time with their family. And if we can make that happen, we're going to look at it. If we are unable to make that happen, we won't be able to look at it. But it'll be something that Dr. Shahab will be providing some advice on as we get closer to that time. Very different set of restrictions as we came through those particular holidays as well. Yeah. Pardon me? Yeah, there was 30 people for outdoor gatherings in Diwali. And I think we were at 15, if I'm not mistaken, then for indoor gatherings in homes, or 10 maybe 10.
I still don't see the net benefit in offering people with amounts of false hope based on the trajectory of the numbers we're seeing. You fully understand, because you're reporting each day, that the numbers are increasing multiple fold in a month, certainly on a weekly basis. If we are in a situation where that continues, and there's every indication it would be, regardless of whatever any government does, because that's just where we are right now in the prairies, isn't it unfair to tell people that this could happen because they tend to be relaxed?
No, not unfair at all. We are going to, like we have throughout the government's approach to responding to this pandemic, is we're going to have those very conversations with Dr. Shahab and take his advice. If he says that we are unable to relax any family visitations for even 2 or 3 days over Christmas, then we will be unable to do that. If he says for 3 days we might be able to have the opportunity to, for instance, see a loved one in a long-term care home, then we will look at that very seriously as well. There's a risk of transmission in our long-term care homes each and every day that our staff members go in. They reduce that risk by wearing appropriate PPE, conducting themselves in an appropriate manner when they aren't at work. The same may be true for potentially families that would want to visit into a long-term care. So there are a number of layers that can mitigate all of these risks. What we are in the situation today is we have an increased community transmission, which is now leaking into our schools, leaking into our correctional centers, leaking into our long-term care homes. That is what we are trying to address with the initiatives that we have that we introduced last week to curb this spread, but still provide an opportunity for much of our community activities and businesses to remain open and our jobs to remain viable.
Are you and Cabinet going to make a decision on this? Ultimately, you're saying Dr. Shahab will give you advice, but will that come down to a Cabinet decision?
No, I don't know if it would be a cabinet decision or not. Ultimately, the advice that Dr. Shahab has put forward, he has put into public health orders without cabinet decisions, without government decisions. He has the full right to do so.
You commit to ensuring that whatever he recommends, whatever he believes is best from a strictly public health perspective becomes.
What Dr. Shahab has provided, very good advice. He's also taken very good input from responses that we've had through the business response team. For example, and his office is very plugged into the advice that is being provided from people across the province. He has engaged personally with athletic organizations. He has engaged personally with various business organizations across the province as well. So there's no, it's this decision from Dr. Shahab's office and this decision from the government. It's much more of a mutual conversation with many other people as part of that conversation to come to where we need to be as a province. So ultimately, Dr. Shahab has been the lead on providing that advice for the province. It's going to continue in the future.
Why are we having mutual conversations at this particular point when we're seeing the increase in hospitalizations and deaths that we're now seeing? That's only expected to continue because of hospitalizations. I don't really understand the value of having mutual conversations with others involved that aren't professionals or aren't public health experts.
Well, there's always place for a conversation with the people across the province. That's what governments do. That's what health experts do as well, so that we can ensure that some of the measures, for example, that have been put forward by Dr. Shahab and his office are able to be implemented in not only an effective manner from the perspective of curbing the spread of COVID-19, which is the advice that comes from the medical community and Dr. Shahab himself and his team, but also can be put into be effective from that medical perspective, but also be effective from still allowing that particular sport or athletic opportunity, that particular business, those particular jobs to continue to operate and allow us to function as close as we can to some degree of normalcy in our communities. So that conversation is always going to happen under this government, right through this pandemic or any other challenges that we approach. Sorry?
When do we reach the point when it couldn't happen because of the hospitalization?
Never. We'll never reach the point where we won't converse with the people of Saskatchewan. We're their representative government. We just came through an election where we had put a campaign platform forward. We're going to take input from the people each and every day that we have the honour of serving them, Murray. No, they're part of that conversation. It's not one or the other. It's not us or them, Murray. This is part of all of us coming together in the province of Saskatchewan to ensure that we can preserve lives and preserve livelihoods. We have taken this balanced and measured approach from the beginning, and we're going to continue to take this balanced and measured approach throughout our response to the pandemic to save lives, but also to ensure that we have every opportunity to preserve jobs and preserve the opportunity for us to come together in our communities. It's pretty good balance.
Incremental moves towards having to deal with situations at particular times, going forward, sometimes going backwards, but sometimes having to go forwards on these moves. So I guess I just don't understand at the point we're in right now, and we're seeing pretty dramatic rise, and a need not to do this, why we wouldn't sort of look at something like holiday transfers of the...
Something like what, sir?
Why we wouldn't be looking at holiday transfers of the virus is something that we could stop as opposed to... I get the business argument, but, you know, it's a little bit more difficult.
What did you say, holiday transfers?
Yeah, like when the virus being transferred because of holiday gatherings.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Well, you know, on the other side, when you look at some of the measures that have been put in place last week, I would expect, and I think the medical community would expect that many of those measures are going to help, not only with the rate of increase that we have seen in the spread of this virus, but it is our true hope that this will start to drive our numbers down on not only that rate, but from the last 7-day numbers, which I think we're about 260 some over the course of the last 7 days, to start to drive those numbers down. So we have taken some significant measures here of recent, of which we're all aware of. It is the hope that those will be successful in not only possibly, and I say very cautiously, possibly a small reprieve over Christmas to come together, but more importantly, keep those numbers down and drive those numbers down so that we can preserve lives and we can preserve livelihoods in communities across this province. This has been the balanced and measured approach that we have taken since day one. It's the inclusive approach where we take advice from all of the people at the table that's going to continue as we find our way through this pandemic.
What do you make of proposition when it comes to
I'd say that's a good start. As you know, there's an ask that has been put forward by the Council of Federation, all of the premiers in the province, to not only remove the cap, which was partially removed or increased here today, but there was also a request to make it retroactive back to 2016-15 to allow some of the provinces that have been greatly impacted that had energy resources within their bounds. So essentially Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland. That was not achieved in the decision yesterday, as well as there was a request by the Council of Federation to recalculate the formula so it actually is a much more responsive program to provinces that have a short-term downturn in their economy. We have the Federal Equalization Program, which also is a flawed program that is there for long-term decreases in provincial economies. But the Fiscal Stabilization Program is there for that more shorter reaction time. And so there were some suggestions that were put forward by all premiers. Yesterday's announcement of partially increasing the cap is a good start to working towards those other suggestions that have been communicated with the federal government.